So I will give you a dirty secret. I am one of the, at least as far as the security team goes, I'm one of the only people who has a Windows laptop.
Oh,
And I
Sounds
don't have a Mac.
awful. No, I'm just
Right?
kidding.
No, I get so much hate for it. And it is because from like a security practitioner standpoint, I'm so used to like all the stuff that Windows has that it's hard for me to transfer over. Nowadays, they're practically the same. And it's more of I just don't want to leave the Google ecosystem.
I think that's the thing though, right? You get into a system and then you have it the way it is, and trying to switch to something else is really a challenge, which I think that's where, as a security professional, I think, Wade, that's where I think you're going to be annoyed with me more than I am with you for using a Windows, where I find now the switches to the new OSs, like that to me gets me just done. Like I know I should have updated on my phone. I still have not updated on my phone because like my kids have updated on their phones and I just can't stand the new OS and the new look, and it's just not for me. And I'm like, okay, let me just see how long can I not do this. I make sure any security patches are done, but like, oh, that muscle memory, like it's just there.
I'll take it. At least you're still doing the security patches. That's all that matters.
The joys of security and trying to do it the easy way.
I will admit, after Rue told us about that Wi-Fi creds thing in 1Password where it just shows you the queue, I immediately set that up at home and I was like, this is the best. I did not know we had this feature.
QR codes make things so much easier. It's, life changing. So, all right. Well, hello and welcome back to Random but Memorable, our podcast from 1Password, where we're going to chat about cybersecurity, privacy, and all the weird and wonderful ways that those things, as we've said, show up in our everyday lives. I'm Sarah, and today I'm joined by Wade and Allie, and we have a lot to cover in today's episode. We're going to start with Watchtower Weekly, where we'll be discussing the latest models from Anthropic and OpenAI, and how they're making it easier to find security vulnerabilities. Then in Crash Course, we're breaking down the concept of open source security, what it is, why it matters, and why so much of the internet depends on it. After that, our very own Allie will be sitting down with cybersecurity expert Glenn Wilkinson for a really thoughtful conversation about what to do if you, your loved one, or your organization gets hacked.
Let's move on to Watchtower Weekly, where we can talk about this in more detail. This is our segment where we shine a light on some of the latest news in cybersecurity and privacy. Today, we're diving into two announcements by Anthropic and OpenAI. Anthropic went first by announcing Claude Mythos, hopefully I said that right, and Project Glasswing. OpenAI quickly followed with a similar announcement for an AI model called GPT-5.4-Cyber. So Claude Mythos is an excellent new AI model, which Anthropic says is excellent at coding and analyzing complex systems. As a result, it is also so brilliant at finding software vulnerabilities. It's so good, in fact, that Anthropic doesn't want to make a model widely available. Instead, it's sharing Mythos with a small group of companies, including Apple, Google, and Microsoft. The initiative is called Project Glasswing.
Yeah, I love the name. I think the name, it's like it definitely, like it's, whoever named it was like, okay, someday we're going to write a movie about this and we don't want it to be the Terminator. We need it to be something like hopeful and here's the future. So I think that's where we've gone with the naming. And I full creds on that. Like Project Glasswing, can't wait to watch it in theaters in 2032. It'll be great.
So like Claude Mythos, GPT-5.4-Cyber is meant to help companies find security holes in their software. So there's a blog post that OpenAI published where they said the new model is purposely fine-tuned for additional cyber capabilities and with fewer capability restrictions. So it allows security professionals to analyze compiled software for malware, vulnerabilities, and what OpenAI calls security robustness. Similar to Anthropic, OpenAI is starting with a controlled release for vetted security vendors, organizations, and researchers.
So these announcements sit right at the intersection of AI and cybersecurity and raise a lot of interesting questions. Pretty much what happens when AI gets too good, and particularly in hacking, right? Like what are we supposed to do?
Mhm. I think that's where this whole thing has really stood out to me, because it's not just about, AI being better at coding. It's not just about, it did a thing for me. It's really getting the point where it's like, hey, can you make sure this is good? And it's now going through and looking for holes in the net. It's making sure, like, did you do everything? And it's really starting to do that security testing, where that's what I think really feels different about it, because it's really going through and looking for bugs and holes and things, where it's like finding those cheat codes. It's able to find those cheat codes way faster than us normal humans. So it's like a supercharged security researcher.
My mind immediately goes to the scary part, which is if these models can find those vulnerabilities that quickly, certainly they could also be an effective tool for hackers and attackers looking to break into systems quickly. And I think that's why Anthropic and OpenAI don't want to release them widely, because in the wrong hands, this could be really scary stuff. Did you have any kind of first thoughts on this, Wade, when you learned about these things?
I will tell you, our security team is like heavy users of AI. Our adoption has been very good so far. And so I'm not surprised that this is happening, but I don't know at what level. Like every time we hear about one of these new AIs, we hear programmers are going to go extinct. Security is going to go in the hole. So it's more of like, I'll believe it when I see it, but I don't think it's at the level they're saying it's at, but it is a better level than the current models. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Sarah,
Right.
What about you? Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think for me a lot of it is like we see it more in the industry than I think the everyday person would. And I think this is really changing things, where it's like, okay, but we have to fix this, because it's not just a matter of finding the bugs, but sometimes it's surfacing the bugs that have been things that have been problems for a long time. And now it's like we have to really fix that and really start figuring out how to be able to move faster, because if we don't fix it, someone else is going to figure out how to use those headlights to hack into something else. And I think that's the uh-oh that no one really wanted to deal with.
And that really brings us to the core tension, like behind these models, is that this isn't the first time we've heard about these companies using LLM capabilities for cybersecurity purposes. So this isn't like a completely new concept. But of course, this is Anthropic and OpenAI, which are the largest companies in the AI scene. Anthropic says Claude Mythos can do what would normally take highly skilled humans a long time to accomplish. And I wouldn't be surprised if both of these new models can spot patterns and connections that are too complex for humans to ever notice. This brings us back to the limited release, right? The companies that are being given Mythos and GPT-5.4-Cyber are going to use these models defensively. So they're getting to adopt it sooner rather than having to wait and figure it out. So the idea is, let's fix all the vulnerabilities before the bad actors can find and exploit them.
Which I think is really hopeful. I think that's, the good framing. Like, even if it's not released to the public, I think the assumption is that similar capabilities will exist more widely in the future. Like, just because they've built it and they've got it right now doesn't mean someone else can't build it. And so as more models are built by other companies, it's not necessarily something that OpenAI or Anthropic can control.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. Anthropic and OpenAI are essentially saying tools like this are going to exist, whether we like it or not. So we should use them now to strengthen our systems we rely on, right? So that's why all the big providers at that top 50 got to use it, because most of them are really critical systems, whether they be cybersecurity or IT infrastructure. There is a real precedent for this in cybersecurity. We already have ethical hackers, bug bounty programs, penetration tests. This is just much more automated and a scalable version of it.
So do you think it's fair then to say that things like the Mythos Glasswing project and all that, this is more like AI-powered friendly hackers, where the goal is to find the problems before someone else does?
That's a good way to think about it, actually. But I think the key differences here is speed and scale. So some of the early reports suggest these models have found vulnerabilities that had been sitting in the wild, used in software for decades. This is a big shift because it suggests there are still a lot of unknown weaknesses in systems we rely on every day. Are you both a little shocked or worried that vulnerabilities can exist and lay dormant for that long? Do you think just a handful of these unresolved critical vulnerabilities could take down the internet?
I'm not super surprised, only because if humans were the ones that built these systems and machines, humans are not perfect. So naturally, I would not expect code base to be perfect and impenetrable. In terms of take down the internet, Wade, I think I feel a little bit on your side of the camp around these pretty grandiose headlines. I hope that that's not the case, but I think, Sarah, you have more experience in this area. Do you think that this is at the level of taking down the internet with this new AI capabilities for these kind of hackers for good situations?
I think it's one of those where I never want to say no. Like, I always feel like it's anything could happen. I think a lot of times when you build something and you test something, you're expecting someone to use it the way you want it to. And I think that's how it works with software. I remember eons ago, someone reporting a bug and having an issue. And when we started debugging it with them, it was because they were using a third monitor. And at the time, that was like even someone having two monitors was a rarity. So the idea that the third monitor coming on board changed the way the software was working. And I think that's the very human element of working with machines, is that we very much take what we want to do and do the way we do it. And then because of that, it's not predictable the way it is. Like, this is just another piece of where we've got AI now. And instead of AI being scary, I think we can look at AI as a tool that can help reveal sort of those things that we didn't do. And AI can be the ones doing it the way that we weren't expecting them to. So they can test for what if someone has 6 monitors, or what if someone is doing it like this, and what if someone plugs in the, this to that, and then see what happens when that happens. And I think that's where there's not enough hours in the days to test the ways that humans will do things differently, because we do things very differently from person to person. So if a machine can come along and help us test all of that, I think that's a good news story where I think we can really help discover problems faster and expose them and then hopefully fix them.
As a security person who has to monitor trends and anomalies, knowing people do stuff is like the bane of completely weird is the bane of my existence. Right. Please do stuff the same again so I can track you. No. So what Sarah said is absolutely true. We mentioned this earlier, but to play devil's advocate, we have to remember this kind of capacity is what we call dual use. The same tool that helps the defenders can also help the attackers if misused. That's why access to these models is restricted and why it's being tested with a relatively small group of trusted organizations. And I guess that's also why collaboration is such a big part of the announcement. It's not just the one company trying to solve this. It's a whole group of organizations that build or maintain critical infrastructure working together.
And I think that's probably one of the most important takeaways here. Cybersecurity, I think, has always been a shared problem, but AI is really making that even more true. And if these tools can analyze and impact systems at scale, then defending against them probably also needs to happen at that same scale as well. So it's just a sign, I think, that AI is becoming a core part of cybersecurity, just like it's becoming a part of everything else and everyone's day-to-day life. The focus is now just making sure that we're using those capabilities to strengthen systems, hopefully, before they can be used against us.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's a bit of both things, where it's just, let's just do it all. Let's make it all happen. Everybody, let's cooperate. And I think that's the other piece that's really interesting about the story, where we've got a lot of the different AI models analyzing things, where we've got a lot of open source software. So when we're talking about things like Project Glasswing and GPT-5.4-Cyber, finding vulnerabilities at scale, a big part of the impact is then trickling over into the open source ecosystem, the same code that powers huge parts of the internet and all the tools that we use every day, which I think feels like a good opportunity to really zoom out, because open source is one of those terms we hear about all the time, and we don't always stop to really understand all of that. So I think we should do that in Crash Course today. Wade, do you want to kick it off? What exactly do we mean when we say open source security?
Yeah, let's start right there, because it's a fascinating topic that is much discussed in the security circles these days. Before we dive in, though, let's take a quick refresher on open source software more generally. When software is open source, its code is publicly available, which means anyone can use or view or contribute to it. In some ways, open source software has been a massive success. Almost everyone either uses open source software or uses proprietary products that include open source software components. Example of some open source projects include Linux, the family of operating systems, Chromium browser, which Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge are both based off of, and the messaging app Signal, which I use every day. So 1Password relies on open source software implementation of the AES cryptographic algorithm. That's so we even have to do it. So if you're using us, you're using open source software. What do you immediately think of when we talk about open source software?
I think about this idea of community, right? Like people building, fixing, and improving things together out in the open.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those group projects, except it's the group project you actually want to be a part of. You're not assigned a group by your teacher. Like it's, how do I collaborate to be a better human and make things better for everyone? So
Yeah. So one of the harder things though is open source security, which is the practice of securing open source software, which is not an easy thing to do. So at first, that might sound like a bit of a contradiction. You might think that software would be most secure if only its creators know how it works. But the idea behind open source security is that the software can be made more secure when anyone from the global community of security experts to interested novices can poke the code, find vulnerabilities, and offer improvements. So since anyone can look at it, anyone can touch it, anyone can find vulnerabilities in it. Think of it as a crowdsourced security testing with more eyes on the code. Bugs can be found, fixed more quickly as well because multiple people are actually working on the software and can implement the bug fixes.
I think that sounds really cool. I think, just everybody working on it together and trying to make things better. Like, I think, though, Wade, I think your opinion is going to be more exciting because, like, what's your experience with it on the day-to-day? Because I would imagine it's a big part of what you do in work and then also what you do outside of work.
Yeah. I am a part of a couple different projects for at least open source, right? And the other thing is I defend an organization who uses open source software. So I have to keep in touch with everything and make sure that I know what's going on if any of those do somehow get compromised, which has been a big thing more recently. The couple of projects I have been with, they're more like open source information and stuff like that. Doing open source programming honestly scares me a little bit because I don't want to put in something bad and then break stuff for everybody. Or possibly be a avenue in which attackers can get into open source software. So that it's interesting.
I was just going to say, nobody wants to be the person that accidentally left the front door unlocked. Like, nobody wants to be that person on any project.
Wade, I was going to ask if you are leveraging AI when you are the person poking holes in open source software.
Right now, not as much. I will say a lot of my big AI stuff, at least both at work and personal more, it's learning how to build things with it, building out different home automations, to tell you the truth. And one of my key things is every time I do it, I ask it, hey, once a day, all my code is checked by Claude for security vulnerabilities. I have it queued up every night. It checks. In the morning, I go look at the pushes and then try to decide if I want to implement them or not. At work, a lot of my more of Claude Code stuff is based on defending the network and like looking at logs, not necessarily looking at code all day. Yeah, not my specialization, but I could probably do it if I tried really hard.
That's awesome.
Nice. It sounds like it's really the way to go. Like if you were going to do it this way, but I assume there has to be another side to that coin.
I think it's very cool and it's a very noble thing. There are people who take advantage of it and there are supply chain attacks, right? So there very much, we've seen that the last couple of days with breaches of a Python library, which is an open source. Someone pushed code to it and then bam, half the internet's infected or something like that. So these projects can be vulnerable to malicious contributors, right? So exactly how I was saying, this happened in 2024 when a hostile actor added a backdoor to a common Linux utility, XZ. This one, which was pretty crazy. They were in the acts of putting this vulnerability in, and one person noticed that their software was actually tens of a second slower. And due to this, he then investigated and found that this vulnerability was being put in place, and they were able to actually stop it before it went in.
Nice.
It was believed to be some nation state level threat actors going on. But in practice, like, software security depends on a number of factors, right? One of them is just random people checking in. And the other one, since it's open source, it's anyone going out there and looking at the pushes and understanding what's going on. So that's the scary part, is a lot of this open source software is built and put in proprietary code, hence it being a little bit more vulnerable.
Do you think that, Wade, in your opinion, that open source has significantly changed the security landscape or the way that developers just work day to day in the last couple of years?
I don't think necessarily. Open source has been around for a long time, right? Like, organizations and companies have gotten stronger with cybersecurity. So attackers have pivoted to a easier target, hence attacking open source and individuals and making sure, right? Like, the home individual person who just has a regular Gmail account is going to be a lot easier to hack than me sending an email to a corporate overlord who has all the security findings in it. So it's just the easier way to get in. And also, you get to infect a bunch of people all at once. So, which is, I'm sure, good for them.
No, that makes a ton of sense. Probably a good time to also mention that if you are listening and you are an open source developer, you may be eligible for our free 1Password Team Starter Pack account. So just reach out and contact us to see if you qualify. But after that great dose of crash course today, I think we can move on to my chat with Glenn Wilkinson. This was a really fun one and so relevant to what we've just chatted about today. We talk a lot about how to prevent getting hacked on this show, but not as much about the steps that you should take if you or your organization actually does get hacked. And this is really an eye-opening conversation that I am really hopeful will help a lot of folks. So if you have a friend or a family member or a coworker that has been hacked recently, maybe send this episode to them for some reassurance and proactive steps that they can take to take back control and feel less alone. Okay, so with that, I think we can jump into it. Today on Random But Memorable, we're joined by Glenn Wilkinson, cybersecurity expert, ethical hacker, CEO, and co-founder of Agger Labs, and one of the UK's leading voices in digital resilience. Glenn has spent years on the front lines of cyber defense, helping individuals, businesses, and organizations understand how attackers think, and more importantly, how to respond when the worst happens. Glenn works in the real-world aftermath of breaches and ransomware attacks, guiding people through some of the most stressful moments of their digital lives. From understanding how modern ransomware gangs operate to navigating the legal and ethical minefield of paying a ransom, Glenn brings both technical expertise and practical human insight to the conversation. Today, we're not talking about how to prevent getting hacked. We are diving into what you should actually do if and when it happens. Welcome to the show, Glenn.
Thank you so much, Ellie. That was an amazing introduction. I shall try and live up to how you just described me.
I'm sure you will. Let's dive into it. Can you talk about some of the most common indicators that a person can look for to know if they've been hacked?
Ooh, yeah, straight off the bat. Good question. How do you know if you have been hacked?
Yeah, how do you know if you've been hacked or recognize if you've been targeted?
Yeah, so I'll say sometimes it's super, super obvious. So either the hackers tell you, hey, I've broken in and I've done something, pay me, or some form of blackmail or something to get access back or to stop you maybe being embarrassed or something. Sometimes it's a lot more subtle. It depends on the objectives of the hacker. Are they trying to be very obvious and get your attention, or are they trying to be very subtle and avoid your attention? So on the subtle side, it's the most common thing on the individual level that I see is friends reaching out on usually Instagram or Facebook saying, hey, my Instagram just suddenly has this weird new profile photo advertising cryptocurrency and I can't log in, and it's busy spamming all my friends saying, click this link to buy into this crypto scheme. It's oftentimes almost the most boring indicators and the most boring of reasons for the hackers to compromise you. So it's some kind of scams. You take over your account and then use that to spam your contacts to try get them to do something. Sometimes slightly more targeted. You might get a message, your phone from a friend. Hey, it's Ali. I lost my phone. I need some money, to buy a new one, or I need a gift card, or maybe going down the scam angle. But if they've, kind of compromised your email or your phone or cloned your SIM or something, they could be pretending to be you, trying to convince friends to hand something over. Another indicator is going to be possibly a flurry of emails in your inbox of password reset attempts followed by success. You'll often get the password reset attempts. So daily I get in my email on all my socials, sorry you can't log in, click this link to reset your password. Those aren't too much of a concern. The bigger concern is, and thank you for resetting your password, and then you try and get access back. And that's where you can often get stuck.
You talked about attacks where the attacker wants to be known and they're kind of forthcoming about it, and attacks where they don't. Do you see any correlation with that strategy, let's call it, between individuals and businesses, or is it quite random across the board?
Yeah, so I'll say in terms of who is targeted, you as an individual, you as a business, it's largely opportunistic. Most people I talk to who have been breached or hacked, okay, well, I never thought this would happen to me. This is very surprising. And none of us think it will happen to us, be it being hacked individually or your business, or being in a car accident or getting cancer or being burgled. It'll never happen to me until it does happen. And it's generally quite opportunistic. Hackers, sometimes they'll target an organization because they know they have maybe good profits or something, or it's maybe a hacktivist angle, and the hackers oppose what that company stands for. But generally, the most common thing I see is opportunistic hackers. And targeting an individual, it might be a case of these kind of automated bots that will just, crawl LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or something and just try log into all of them with some default passwords or some easy to guess passwords, or they try to do a password reset link and convince you to do something. A really common hack that we see, especially on individuals, is via breach databases. What I mean by that is say LinkedIn. So LinkedIn got hacked quite a few years ago, and all the usernames and passwords got leaked onto the dark web. You can go download that data set. Hackers have that data set. And if you use the same password for LinkedIn as you do for other things, hackers will have these automated scripts to try and pair those things together, which is why you should never use one password. You should use a whole lot of different passwords.
I have two follow-ups to that. One is when you're talking about writing the scripts and getting access to that data, I have to imagine in a world with AI now, that is just exponentially easier and faster than it's ever been for attackers.
Yeah. In terms of the security implications, it's absolutely spinning up efficiencies. It's making things, as you say, a bit faster, a bit more efficient. It's easier to scale operations. We're not seeing at least not yet, a huge increase in the inherent capabilities. We're not getting super AI hackers yet, but it's the grunt work that AI is great at. Yeah. So hey, Mr. AI, here's 10,000 email addresses. Let's automate, searching the dark web, and write me some scripts to try and brute force the accounts, or help me write a spear phishing email to convince the user to click a thing. That's where we're seeing AI being a bit dangerous at the moment, I'd say.
That makes sense. And then the other one that I had, and you kind of touched on this a little bit when you mentioned people are thinking it would never happen to me. When someone realizes that they've been hacked, in your experience, what's typically going through their mind in those first few minutes of, shoot, something bad has happened?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost two different camps. Sometimes this is a bit weird and mildly annoying. Maybe you don't even realize you've been hacked. Just, hey, this is weird. Instagram is sending out DMs to my contacts with some crypto Ponzi scheme. That's a bit odd. Maybe it's a setting that I did wrong, or a plugin I installed or something. It's not always so obvious that you've been hacked. And in some cases, I have instances where a contact, maybe on LinkedIn, has sent me some kind of message like that, and I tell them, "Hey, it looks like you've been hacked." And like, yeah, man, I'll get round to it. Not too worried, because maybe I really understand the risk or the implications, or it might look like just a harmless DM with a crypto scheme, but it might be a lot bigger. They may have access to a whole bunch of other systems. On the other side of the coin is often, a bit of a panic. It's like, oh my goodness, maybe your Instagram, you're not so fussed about if it's posting weird messages, but if it's your primary email, or your phone number's been cloned, and there's money leaving your bank account, or it's your primary email's been compromised, and all your other accounts are getting reset, to the point of, for example, if you're in the Mac ecosystem, it's all tightly tied together. there's a very unfortunate chain of events where a hacker gets access to your phone or your phone number or your email, kind of your primary reset mechanism, and from there they do a reset on your laptop, on your iPhone, on your iPad, and you can do a remote wipe on all of those things or pilfer the data from all of those things, and it can escalate quite quickly, that kind of chaining of attacks. So you may not be worried about that first thing that gets compromised, but hackers will generally chain multiple things together until they get to a point that might hurt you, which may be your bank account or your inbox, which may have things that you don't want the world to see or to know about.
So, I mean, let's play that out then. What are some of the things that folks should be thinking about or doing, or steps that they should be taking, and in what order? So the Instagram example, you're right. I've had friends that's happened to, and it's minimal panic, right? No problem. I'll just spin up a new account. But to your point, like the dominoes could start to fall quickly. So what should folks be thinking about if they find themselves in a compromised situation like that?
Yeah, so I say the first thing is take it seriously, but don't panic, which I guess you should do in any serious situation, if it's cyber or otherwise. Give it the attention it deserves, and that's most likely containment and recovery. The containment is, let's not let this thing spread. Let's nip it in the bud. If it appears that one account has been compromised, let's try and quickly rectify that before it spreads somewhere else. So your primary email gets compromised. That's very bad, but that could lead to your bank or your HMRC or your entire life as paths to get to other things. So let's contain that as fast as we can. Generally, I would say the best advice is use a clean device. So if you've got a secondary laptop or borrow someone's laptop or something, and try and, you're not sure of how clean the device is. If my laptop itself may have been hacked as opposed to just my email account. So from a clean device, ideally, log back into, if it's your Gmail or whatever email you use, reset your passwords, check session activity. Oh, look, there's an active session from Beijing. I'm not there. I don't use a VPN, probably not me. Terminate session, or terminate all sessions, ideally, then relog in on all your devices. So log in, change password, view and terminate sessions, and ensure that you have MFA enabled. And if you're using 2FA, so 2FA is, you get SMS for a magic code to log in. Not great, because SMS is a whole lot of inherent problems with SMS. If it's cloning SIM cards or just snooping SMS on the airwaves. MFA is the app on your phone where you have to enter the actual code on the app. Make sure you've got that MFA in place. And that's probably, the best starting point. And hopefully that's going to, what we say, kind of shrink the blast radius or control the blast radius.
Would you say a common mistake that folks make in the first hour, let's say, after discovering that a breach has occurred, is maybe using the device? Like, I never thought of that, to use someone else's device, or a clean device, a safe device. Is that one of the most common mistakes that you see happen, or are there other ones?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're right. It's things maybe not thought about, and a bit of a panic. Things are going wrong, and just want to get access back and try and shut things out. And the risk is, I mean, it's a far lesser risk. It's much more likely that some kind of cloud compromise, they guessed your password, will stole your password, or from a breached database or something. But it is possible that your device itself is compromised. And touching again on AI, this mad rush to install all kinds of software on your devices that you may not fully understand. OpenClaw is a great example. Install OpenClaw, give full permission to my device, because we're so, when you install OpenClaw, it's a big warning message. This might be dangerous. Make sure you know what you're doing. But everyone just smacks I accept, because we're so conditioned from decades of reading end user license agreements. I accept. It's an inherent risk that your device itself is compromised. That's definitely quite a possibly common mistake that people will make. The other mistake I see quite often is assuming the breach has been contained. That's both for individuals and organizations. Hackers are quite mischievous. We break in and we get comfortable, and we ensure we have a lot of backdoors, a lot of avenues of access. In case you kick us out of one spot, we still have a foothold somewhere else. So maybe a common mistake is the assumption that, okay, I changed my Gmail password, now I'm fine. But maybe hackers set up a forwarding rule, so any emails that come into your inbox get forwarded to the hacker's email address, so they can do resets elsewhere, and that reset link gets forwarded to their address. So it might be a case of assuming.
How would you know that? Like how can you tell the extent of a breach?
Yeah, it's tricky. It's trickier for a business. For an individual, make sure that you clean device, change your password, terminate existing sessions, make sure you have MFA enabled, and go and check your forwarding email rules. That's such a common thing to be overlooked. And essentially what that means is hackers, they break in, they set up a rule in your inbox, so any emails get forwarded to them. So go and check your forwarding rules. Every email account is different, but in Gmail, just kind of settings, forwarding rules or something. But it's something that all email accounts have. And that's one of the most common tactics of hackers, both targeting individuals and businesses. Just set up forwarding rules or other rules to delete certain emails. So a hacker will break in and try and get in the middle of an ongoing conversation and delete any reply, forward that reply and then delete it from your inbox. So it's almost like a person in the middle, but you're not seeing that conversation. It's more common in the business context. We call that business email compromise. So hackers will break into your Outlook, your work email address, and they'll find an ongoing conversation about invoices or something. And they'll reply as you saying, oh, hey, by the way, we've changed our banking details. Please use these new banking details. And then they'll have rules in your inbox to make sure that you don't see that email, but a reply, but it gets forwarded to the hacker's inbox. I guess the short takeaway there is just go and make sure that your forwarding rules are clean.
That's so helpful. I had no idea that existed, and I'm grateful to hear that. If an attacker gets a hold of your data, so they've got it. Is there a way to ever fully recover, or recovery ever truly being complete? Or at that point, if they have your data, is it more about damage control? Like, what is the best case scenario for someone who's been hacked?
I mean, there's that old adage about once something's on the internet, it's out there forever. It's very hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube, as the expression goes. What's the old expression? The Barbra Streisand effect. Barbra Streisand famously, there were some photos of her house they were on the internet, and she didn't want those on the internet, so she made this whole big song and dance about getting it removed, which only got more attention. So now everyone went to see them. So sometimes almost the exact opposite thing can happen. Generally, once your data is out there, it's out there. If you're an organization, it's much harder to contain that, especially if it's something like ransomware and the files get stolen and put on what we call a dark leak site. Individually, hackers will probably break in, get access to, if it's your inbox or something. They're probably not too fussed, to be honest. And generally, it's more of an individual hacker than some kind of crime syndicate. Hackers are driven generally by financial motivation, right? So they'll break in, maybe try to get access to your banking, maybe try to do a business email compromise where they try and change invoices to get payments through, or it's some kind of what we call sextortion or some kind of blackmail thing where they find compromising something on your laptop or in your inbox and try and blackmail you, usually for cryptocurrency payments, to not go and put that information on the internet. But yeah, it's hard to get that toothpaste back in the tube.
Yeah, interesting. Can you talk about some of the victims that you've worked with? Maybe a story that illustrates sort of these vulnerable moments and the real human impact behind being hacked. Because I think if it hasn't happened to you and it hasn't happened to somebody I think it's kind of hard to put the human element to it. Often
I get just an individual phoning me, and it's, help, this doesn't seem right. Something's wrong. Can you help? Can you look into it? But even in a corporate environment, it's usually the individual or individuals who feel the pain. Servers don't feel the pain. Servers don't care that their data got leaked. It's ultimately the people that feel the pain. I worked with this lady. The scenario was interesting. Basically, there was some dispute between her and her neighbor. Her neighbor was very tech savvy, much younger. He worked in IT, and he had some dispute over, I don't know, the party wall or something, some planning permission issue. He had effectively hacked into her email to read all the correspondence that she was having with her lawyer seeking counsel, so he could refute any, be on the front foot, refuting any evidence and things like that. And it's the kind of thing that's not overly complex if you have a little bit of tech savviness. So basically all he did was he created some kind of fake Wi-Fi access point. She connected to it. There's a pop-up where she entered her Gmail credentials, fake pop-up. Hi, your Virgin Media Hub, we need to update your settings, new privacy laws, something. Please enter your Gmail username and password. He grabbed that. She didn't have 2FA or anything installed. Even if she did, there's ways around that. And then he got access to her email, sitting next door and kind of reading all the correspondence. The interesting one there, I can tell you how we caught him. And maybe my one tip for the listeners today is almost beating hackers at their own games. One of my favorite companies in South Africa, they're called Thinkst, and they have a thing called canary tokens. Effectively, they're like little decoys that we plant for hackers to trip over, and then we know that they're poking around where they shouldn't. So with this lady, I told her to send an email to her lawyer, get the lawyer in the loop, send an email to the lawyer with a document attached with some new, hey, Mr. Lawyer, I figured out how to resolve this dispute with my neighbor. Please see the attached document. And inside that document was a tracking token such that the neighbor reading her inbox, ooh, that looks interesting. They're talking about me. I'm going to open that document. He opened it. The canary sang back. I got an alert on my side saying, hey, someone just opened that document. We told the lawyer not to open it, so we know it wasn't him. And that was our indicator that somebody was reading her email. That then put us in a position where we've got his IP address and his what we call user agent, so we could see it match the system he was using. And then we got law enforcement involved, and that kind of unraveled in that direction. But those types of incidents are ones I'm on the personal level called into quite often.
And in those examples, I mean, I have to imagine there's feelings around being embarrassed or ashamed that they got caught up in this and I should have known better and maybe I shouldn't have even said anything. So what would you say to those people?
So I think this is a whole other hour-long podcast on itself, but I think one of the biggest problems in cybersecurity is the responsibility and onus we put on users to keep themselves and the organization safe. It should be, so if you get hacked, you will probably feel a bit bad, a bit guilty, I shouldn't have done that. But at the same time, it happens to everyone. I've clicked dodgy links and, luckily, I think caught myself before it was too late. I got an SMS an hour ago, from DPD Delivery saying, you weren't in your packages at the depot, click here to rebook a schedule. Per coincidence, I'm expecting a delivery, so I'm in a bit of a rush. I click the thing. Luckily, I'm maybe more IT literate than the average person. That link looks a little bit dodgy. Let me just backpedal. But it's so hard to spot those things, and we're all super busy. We're not all security professionals. We're all just trying to do our job. We do our lives. The onus shouldn't be on us to be the security experts. If you get hacked or you click a dodgy link or anything like that happens, of course you have the right to feel a bit bad, a bit embarrassed, but absolutely it's not your fault. These hackers are sophisticated. It's their day jobs. They know what they're doing, and it happens to all of us. It happens to me, an apparent security expert. My second point there is that in the cybersecurity industry, we need to take a bit more responsibility to make these systems safer and not rely on the user to be the last line of defense.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And if someone's listening right now and suspects that they've been compromised, I think you've given a couple good kind of first steps, but is there a golden rule? Like, is it finding that clean device? Is it immediately going into your email and looking at forwarding? Do you have sort of a one thing that they can focus on first to kind of feel a little bit more in control again?
Yeah, so I think golden rule is the basics, right? So I think I've been compromised, and you may not be. Maybe it's just a random SMS or a strange email, but still, you can still be a bit prudent. Reset my passwords. Let's make sure MFA is enabled. Let's make sure, the biggest advice I give unrelated to the show is you use a password manager. One of the biggest mistakes people make is having the same password for everything. So like the story earlier, if your password is in the LinkedIn breach and use that same password elsewhere for your HMRC or something, hackers will grab that and try it somewhere else. So absolutely MFA, password manager, and backups and patching and all those almost rudimentary things is what I refer to as your basic cyber hygiene. Most hacks aren't military grade Hollywood fanfare. It's normally somewhat rudimentary, almost boring way in. So if you get the basics right, you'll probably be in a good position. And I'm sure we can recommend some good password managers for the listeners.
It sounds like the golden rule following the hack is probably pretty closely aligned to what to do to be preventative, right? So you're talking about not using the same password, using a password manager, MFA when it's available. I have to imagine those are the types of things that we would want listeners to proactively think about.
Yeah, it's almost, you're spot on. It's almost do the stuff proactively to make sure you don't get hacked. But if you do suspect you've been hacked, it's the same line of thinking. Check that those things are in place and then go through the checklist of log in, check forwarding rules, change passwords, make sure MFA is enabled and double check that. Make sure your backups are in place and that's all good. Maybe check your sent items and your DMs that nothing weird is going out. One thing that actually a really almost another golden thing to do, make sure that with your mobile phone that your number is locked down. So the two most valuable things you have are your primary email address and your mobile phone. And those are the things that hackers will try to get access to get access to other things. If I get access to your phone number and I control that, then I can go to any other portal you have, any other login you have, and do a password reset, get a one-time thing or a link sent to your mobile phone. And the most common way that hackers will get access to your phone number is a thing called a SIM swap. So a hacker or fraudster will go into the local phone shop and then they will reset that, give you a brand new SIM, and then you, Ali, you look at your phone, oh, no signal, no reception, that's weird. A whole bunch of emails, oh, that's weird, password reset. And then suddenly, your laptop goes into reset mode and it's gone. So that's the bad thing. How you protect against the bad thing. What I do with my mobile provider, I am very explicit that nothing can be changed on my account unless I am in the store in person with a physical copy of my passport. So nothing over the phone, nothing over email or SMS, in the store in person with physical copy of my passport. And that's on my file. What you can do there, my final little almost paranoid tip, have a second burner phone that no one knows that number. And that's only for password resets or linking to accounts. So no one else knows that number, just you. And you leave that in the drawer turned off unless you need to do a reset.
On the topic of it being sophisticated, I think that's a really good preventative measure for folks. Okay, I do want to pivot to business because we've chatted a lot about individual, which I think is really important. But chat to me a little bit for the listeners that might not fully understand. How does modern ransomware actually work today in 2026?
Yeah, it's such a fascinating topic to unpack. And here in the UK, the NCSC, the National Cybersecurity Centre, in their annual report last year, they highlighted ransomware as the biggest cyber threat facing the UK at the moment, as well as a global issue. We expect by the year 2031, we'll have $265 billion worth of damages from ransomware. So it's definitely something that's very prevalent. We see in the news, never mind all the small businesses that we don't see in the headlines who are probably getting hurt more than these big players. Ransomware itself is remarkably simple. All it is a program that runs. When you double click it, but more likely a hacker kind of remotely makes it run. But when it runs, it goes through all of your files on your computer, normally just your documents, your desktop, and it scrambles the contents. So it encrypts them. So it scrambles the contents of all of your files and then drops a note on your desktop that says, ransom note, read me, and possibly changes your background image to say, hey, you've been hacked, you've been ransomed, please open the ransom note and we'll discuss how you get your files back. And generally it'll be a little ransom note. You open that text file and it says, hey, we're Lapsus, Shiny, Scattered Spider, whatever the hacker group is. All your files are gone, you personally and you, the organization, more likely. If you ever want to see your files again, click this link to go onto the dark web where we can chat to you and we can discuss an appropriate payment to get your files back. You click that link and you'll go and chat with the hackers and they'll generally say, hey, yep, £5 million if you want to see your files again. Maybe negotiate a bit, get it down to 3 million. And at that point, if you were to pay up, they would then give you a decryptor program that you could run and that would unscramble your files and get your files back. But it's almost quite simple when you describe it. It's software runs, scrambles your files, you pay some Bitcoin, get another program to get your files back.
Wow. So in that scenario, what are some of the most important steps that a company could take in the first 24 hours of being hacked? And then following that, like how common is it for police to get involved? Or is this like, we've been hacked, Ali tells me from product marketing that this has happened and we're going to deal with it internally? Like, yeah, walk me through kind of those first 24 hours.
So let's unpack this. So I think the first thing to mention is that cyber criminality and the ransomware front is a lot more organized and sophisticated than it used to be. What we've seen is the rapid industrialization of the cyber underground economy. What I mean by that is we're seeing two big things at the moment. We're seeing ransomware as a service. Effectively, what that means, I don't have to make ransomware software. I can go on the dark web and I can join an affiliate program of a group of hackers or programmers who make the ransomware software. About $150, I can join the affiliate program and I'll get a copy of the ransomware software. Easiest use case, plug in a USB stick, go to my office because I hate my job, plug it into the server, run it, all the files get scrambled. If the company pays up, I get 70% and the guys who make the software get 30%. So it's like a normal affiliate program. The other thing we're seeing is what we call initial access brokers, IABs. On the same dark web forums, you can go and you can buy access to previously compromised organizations. So what hackers will do, they'll just opportunistically hack every company they can and then go and sell that access on the dark web. About $5,000, you can buy access to a law firm in the US with 10,000 servers and $2 billion in revenue. So literally today, you could go on the dark web, buy access to a company, join the affiliate program, some ransomware, smush those two things together, and then try and extort the company for money. And that wasn't your question. I went on a tangent there. I think your question was...
I know, but now I'm fascinated. I mean, that is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So let's go through the scenario. I flagged to security that I've been hacked. Ransomware has popped up on my computer. What should a business
as a company,
do
what
in those
should you do?
Yeah.
So let's think about this. So how do you know that ransomware has been deployed? Interestingly, hackers generally spend the average this year is 197 days on your corporate network before you even know that they are there. Hackers will break in, get comfortable, understand your backup plans, your policies, sniff around, see if you have cyber insurance. They will announce themselves by deploying ransomware, and then big scary pop-up, your files are gone. So once they're comfortable, once they've destroyed your backups, once they've disabled your antivirus and your EDR and your other protections, what do you do? So that's like worst case scenario. You're the head of IT or you're the CEO or something. You come to work in the morning, all the systems are down. Oh, that's weird. Maybe there's a power outage. Maybe there's data centers being hit by missiles, could be anything. Oh, actually, then there's an email from someone saying, hey, your files were scrambled, click this link and let's talk. And that is, I would say, absolutely devastating. So what do you do in that scenario? My advice would be, think about it in this order: contain, preserve, assess, and communicate. First step, contain the spread. So if you've noticed some machines have got ransom notes popping up, maybe others are yet to be infected, let's try and contain that. And how do we contain it? Well, there's technical things to do. Isolate that network, physically turn them off. There's all kinds of things that we can do to physically try and stop that spread. Second point there was preserve. So try and preserve the evidence. And that's going to be useful for post-fact, when maybe you're talking to a cyber insurance provider, you're trying to get some money back, or you're trying to understand where they got in to make sure that you've cleaned everything up and they're not still there. Don't kind of knee-jerk panic response. Okay, let's just push the roll backups button and try and get everything back online by this afternoon. Those backups might be infected. If you do backup immediately, you might lose crucial evidence that will help you understand what happened. At that point, maybe the assess. Don't rush to that point, but let's try and figure out exactly what was affected, at what scale. Was it local servers? Is it workstations? Is it in the cloud? Is it offsite? Is it local? And there's two things to worry about. One is the actual ransomware that scrambled the machines, but then two, the hackers are probably having a heyday running around your entire network. Let's try and figure out how they got in, where they are, how we can contain them. And the final point there was contain, preserve, assess, and then communicate. Communicate both internally and externally. And have your playbooks ready and rehearsed. Make sure you have printouts of if your systems are scrambled and your incident response documentation is on a scrambled server, not so great. So having printouts of who do we contact, who's our IR provider, who's our PR liaison, what templates do we have that we can send, if you're a big organization, send to the press, or any organization, send to our customers. Hey, we've noticed ransomware incident, blah, 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 blah. It's in hand. Please do this. Please don't do this. So almost the soft, squishy stuff that can, to a degree, be more important. So that's definitely an option. But the point there is to contain the damage, I would say. Contain, preserve, assess, communicate.
So, I mean, in that scenario, I didn't hear anything about pay the hacker. I mean, let's talk about that kind of uncomfortable question. Is this, I think this is debated, but, should companies ever pay the ransom? And from a legal standpoint, are there risks that are introduced when you pay?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's think about that. So the one thing, and it's completely up to you, dear listener, if you want to engage with the hackers or not. So maybe, ransomware, there's the link, click this link to come chat to us. So you click that link, and then you get, a little text box, and you can chat to the hackers, and you go back and forth. And all right, this is the ransom. Here's some sample files to prove that we have your files. This is the amount. Maybe negotiate back and forth. You can even get a third party involved to negotiate on your behalf. So the first question is, do we want to communicate with them or not? And that's probably something you should decide before it happens. Consult with an expert, me or somebody else, play out the scenarios, have a decision in advance so you have that playbook. Okay, hackers are broken in, there is ransomware. The playbook says, and it's printed out with a paper, the playbook says, okay, we will or we won't engage with them. We will or we won't pay ransomware. We will pay up to a certain amount or we won't. So have those decisions made for you. It's almost like any kind of, if you're a paramedic or if you're in a war zone or if you're any kind of high pressure situation, you have that checklist created in advance.
Right.
So you don't have to, in the moment, try and get your prefrontal cortex online when you're in the monkey brain panicking. Okay, let me just follow the step by step by step. But to answer the question there, so should you pay or should you not? So first choice, do we communicate or not? If you say yes, well, then do we pay or not? At the moment, at least in the UK, and it varies between different countries, it's not illegal to pay a ransom. And that might be the fastest way to get your files back. And you may not even have to tell the press or tell your customers or tell the shareholders or tell anyone, right? They want £1 million. So it's not illegal, but it may be immoral. And you have to decide this for yourselves because you're financing organized crime and you're encouraging those criminals to do more of that. The interesting caveat there, so it's not illegal in the UK or in most countries these days to pay a ransom, but it might very well be illegal to send money to a state that is currently under sanction. And most of these ransomware gangs, they operate out of Russia or ex-Soviet states or maybe North Korea or something. So you end up paying the ransom to some Russian hackers. That paying a ransom isn't illegal, but sending money to Russia, a sanctioned state, that might very well get you in a whole bunch of trouble. And even more serious scenarios, it's very, very illegal to send money to any kind of terrorist or terrorist affiliated group. So there may be some link there. You pay some hackers out of some country that's harboring terrorists or involved with terrorism, and then you're going to be in a whole lot of trouble.
In these scenarios, companies that pay ransoms, how guaranteed is it that they'll even get their data back?
Yeah.
Right? So you've now maybe put yourself in a compromising situation where you're on the hook of sending money to an unsanctioned state or, a legal terrorist organization you're hoping to do under the radar and you don't get your data back. Does that happen?
Oddly enough, you stand a very good chance of getting your data back and never hearing from the hackers again. And the reason is one simple word: reputation. These hacker groups, their entire business model is based on their reputation, such that if you pay, you get your files back. If you pay and you don't get your files back or they disappear, their name is tarnished and it'll be in the news, or at least the geeky news. And the next time someone gets ransomed, they'll say, oh, I know you guys, we pay and we don't get our files back. So no, we're not dealing with you. So oddly enough, there's some degree of as honor amongst thieves or something else, but you stand a very good chance of getting your data back. And two, they'll often help patch your systems. Okay, so this is how we broke in. Make sure you fix this and update this, and they'll help you harden your systems. And they'll pinky promise that they won't hack you again. And they'll spread word on the underground. Okay, don't hack these guys because we've hacked them already. Let's leave them be.
Wow, that's unbelievable. Yeah, that's wild. When you think about kind of the range of outcomes that an experience like this can have, what separates businesses that recover well from these experiences and businesses that do not recover well?
Yeah, it's a good question. I say there's two broad things that I see in my experience, and that's the technical processes and frameworks and things in place, and then there's the soft squishy stuff of policies and PR decisions that have been made in advance and almost guidelines to follow. On the technical side, it's almost what we refer to as defense in depth. So cybersecurity is like an onion. So there's lots of different layers. And the more mature you are in your journey of having good cybersecurity as an organization, the more likely you are to ward off a hack or a ransomware deployment, but also the more likely you are to rapidly recover. And that's, across the board. If it's network segmentation or lockdown machines, this whole zero trust thing, and having those canaries sprinkled around, having our product Agger Labs on your endpoint to detect and kill ransomware, but also prevent reinfection. So if you do get hit and you're trying to clean up and you don't get reinfected again, so kind of those technical controls in place. And then there's the other side, the soft, squishy stuff is how mature are you on policies, and have you done your tabletop exercises? Have you allocated responsibilities of who's in charge of what during a crisis? And have you mapped out all the possible crises? And ransomware is very much an existential risk to your business. So do you have that internal maturity to deal with those risks that may end a business, of which cyber is one of them, of which ransomware is one of them?
Right. That makes sense. And for companies who already have an incident response plan, does the introduction of AI affect how companies plan for or respond to data breaches now?
Yeah, good question. So I think earlier we touched on the offensive side of AI, so how hackers are leveraging AI. But in terms of the effect that AI is having on the defender side, it's absolutely ramping up. And the number of either startups in the space having AI stuff, doing triaging, or the incident response side of things, helping figure things out, or existing companies bolting on AI to try and increase those capabilities. It's a bit of a wild west at the moment, so it's hard to understand what technologies are good or not. But in general, I think AI is going to be super useful post-breach, incident response, helping to triage and give context to what's going on, especially at scale. But what will fail, in my opinion, is when we hand over too much control to AI and we don't use it where it's most effective. So it's probably useful in digesting large amounts of information, giving context. It's not very good at very specific, low-level, almost kernel operations or things or things like that. Ask me again in a year, it'll be a different answer, but it's definitely exciting as to what's coming.
For anyone listening whose company doesn't currently have an incident response plan for how to handle getting hacked, how important is it for them to create one, do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely, the short answer, very important. The harder question, especially if you're an SME, so at least here in the UK, 99% of businesses are SMEs or SMBs, depending on your lingo. And the vast majority of them have less than £100 a month spend on IT and cybersecurity. So I would say, especially if you're a small business, but if you're any business, getting a foot in the door in the right direction in terms of incident response, but also just generally having policies in place, your best starting point is Cyber Essentials. Get started on Cyber Essentials and then Cyber Essentials Plus, then upgrade to NIST and NIST2. Basically get the frameworks in place that will unlock budgets and pathways to get the technical stuff in place. As with anything in life, if you want to lose weight or you want to get strong or something, it's not going to happen tomorrow. But small decisions that you make every day that create the habits that will get you towards your goal. So don't have the chocolate, have the apple. Do that every day. It becomes a habit, and you stack that. If you don't have anything in place, after the show, go and Google Cyber Essentials. Okay, it's quite easy. Maybe I can just start my journey, and then you compound those changes that you make. The old saying, you don't have to outrun the bear, you just have to outrun your mate. So as long as your cybersecurity posture and everything is a bit better than your competitor or some other business, hackers are opportunistic. Oh, this is a bit too difficult, I'm going to go hack those guys over there. So as long as you have something in place, you're heading in the right direction, and of course, reach out to me. My advice and guidance is free.
Yeah, let's wrap up. And I want to say thank you so much. This was such an insightful conversation. And if listeners do want to hear more about you and your work, where can they go?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two main things I do. One, I'm a keynote speaker. So I jump on podcasts. I speak at events all around the world. My website is Glenn with two N's, so glenn-wilkinson.com. And then I also run Agger Labs. That's AGGER-Labs. And with that role, we have created a ransomware killer. So an agent, a bit of software that runs on your laptops, on your servers. We do one thing and we do it well. We detect and kill ransomware. No fluff, no signatures, no updates, just dead ransomware is the slogan. And at the very least, just reach out, connect on LinkedIn. If you have any questions or concerns, I'm always very happy to help.
Great. And we'll make sure that we put those links in the show notes. Thanks again, Glenn, for joining us today. This was a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ali.
All right. Well, that was really great. I think a lot of us, and a lot of us out in the world, it's a lot easier to fall for some of these hacks and scams and all of that these days. So, really appreciate Glenn for coming on the show, and Ali, that was a great conversation that you guys had. Hopefully that everyone is feeling a little bit more informed and prepared, because remember, it can happen to any of us, even if we're being careful. So, with that, we're going to move on over to our next segment, Ask 1Password. This is the part of the show where we metaphorically hand you the mic and let you ask us a question that you might have. So today we have a question from Johnny, who says, "Hello, random but memorable. I'm an OG listener and wanted to start off by saying, are cherries a berry?" I love that one. But my real question for you is this. I'm an IT manager and recently rolled out 1Password. Any tips for encouraging my team members to use it? Thanks for keeping up with the pod. Johnny.
Yeah, that's a great question. There are a few factors that can prevent team members from setting up new software. Like the first one, not having enough time, not knowing how to set it up, or not knowing why it's worth setting up, what the value of it is, right? To encourage your team members to use 1Password, start with the why. 1Password will keep the business secure while also saving you time. Like the saving the time part is my biggest thing. I hate typing in passwords, right? Especially when they're complicated. No one wants to be the reason the company got hacked. So using 1Password means you and your team can stay productive without needing to worry about data breaches or leaks. Once they're on board, book some time to help them set some stuff up, get the most out of 1Password. There's a lot of different avenues and a lot of different functionality that isn't right up there. Very much how we were kind of talking about the Wi-Fi setting. I love that now. It's better to set up everything in one sitting than have employees chip away at it, because then they might forget to finish the process.
Yeah, this is my bread and butter for my rollout 1Password in a lot of ways. So I'm going to plug some of the incredible resources that we have in our 1Password community. There's a whole onboarding kit that has videos and guides for individuals, but also Johnny, you as the admin. There's also some really great use cases that are available online that talk about some of the ways that, Wade was saying about the benefits of using 1Password. I'll plug our developer tools. If you have an engineering team, they're a great power user to, be that first through the door for rolling out 1Password and getting to take advantage of using things like our CLI and creating and storing SSH keys right in the same vault where their human credentials are stored. The easiest all-in-one approach is to share our 1Password for Team Members course, which is in 1Password Academy. And that's a really good opportunity and way to teach your team members very simple things like how to create an account, how to import existing data, and explain sort of these key concepts like 1Password vaults and item sharing.
Love it. And I think it's always great when we get to talk about stuff like our 1Password Academy and all the different resources that we have out there. I think the more you can familiarize yourself with how easy it is to do things, and it becomes second nature just to do the easy stuff, it's really great. So good luck to you, Johnny, with your folks. If all of the resources and everything don't work, donuts in the break room always are an extra bonus when you have a little lunch and learn session. So good luck with you and your team. And that's it for Ask 1Password this week. If you have questions for us, you can send us a voice note or an email over to podcast@1password.com, or you can leave a comment over at our forum at 1password.community. So with that, it only means we've got one thing left. And with that, we're going to play the jingle because it's time for identity theft.
It's identity theft. Guess who they're claiming to be? Fire your yes or no questions for security and catch that fake ID.
So with that, we will welcome you to Identity Theft, our security-themed game. Before we play, here's a quick recap of the rules. I, the host, have stolen the identity of a well-known person, celebrity, fictional character, thing. We'll see. Wade and Allie can ask me yes or no questions to narrow down who I am. At any point they think they know who I am, they can buzz in. To buzz in, they can either shout single factor or multi-factor. If they shout single factor, that means they can name who I am. Get it right and they'll earn 1 point. If they shout multi-factor, they have to name who I am and give 2 correct facts about me. If they can pull that off, they get 2 points. We know this isn't exactly how multi-factor authentication works, but we're just going to kind of roll with it to see, make it work for the game. So those are the rules. And with that, it's time for you to try and guess whose identity I've stolen today. Your clue for today, it's a good one. It's a big one. I am not human.
Are you an animal?
I am not.
Are you something I'd find in my house?
Maybe.
Are you from Earth?
I'm from the ethos, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nah. Are you a god?
Some might compare me to that.
Oh, okay. All right.
Are you something to do with AI or robotic?
I am definitely adjacent to that, yes.
Okay.
Are you created by a tech company?
I am.
Are you the robots that Elon Musk has put in people's houses? I don't know what they're called.
I am not. I am not, happily.
Do you specialize in cybersecurity?
No, I don't think I'm a specialist.
But you might find them in someone's house, but you were created by a tech company. Can you be plugged in?
Yes.
All right. I'll guess. I'll do 1 factor because I don't think I know. Are you Alexa?
No.
Okay, I liked your question, though. Can you respond to humans?
Yes.
Are you Google Home?
No. I'm nearby.
All right.
You're right there. You're
right
so hot.
there.
If we were playing hot and cold, you'd be hot.
Are you Claude?
No. I'm older than Claude.
You're older.
I'm older.
And you can be
I'm older
plugged
than
in.
Alexa.
Are you some type of smart doorbell?
Nope. I'm the OG.
Oh.
So it's not necessarily me being plugged in. It's my thing being plugged in.
Oh boy.
You're a real thing. You're not fictional.
I'm a real thing. You can't touch me though.
Are you a Roomba?
No. No, you're getting colder. Alexa was hot.
No, she just said colder. You can't. Wait, we can't touch you.
Okay,
we can't touch you. And I need to be plugged in. Are you like Wi-Fi or something, or?
No, I don't need to be plugged in, but I could be because I need more power because my thing needs power. Let's just.
I should have had Gemini. Are you Gemini?
Oh, a mobile phone, like the iPhone.
No, I'm not. You're so hot. You're so hot.
Siri. You're Siri.
Yes, I am.
Right.
It's so hard. Isn't this a hard one?
That was a good one.
That was
hard, but it was good.
Guessing.
Great. Now I'm 2 for 2.
So I came into being in 2011. That's how long I've been around. Siri is officially 15 years old. And it's not an acronym, even though people think it is. And Apple's virtual assistant was released October 2011. Mixed reviews. Praised for its voice recognition, contextual knowledge for user information like calendar appointments. But the launch was also sadly overshadowed by the death of Steve Jobs, which occurred 1 day after the launch. So mixed times there for Siri's launch. But, now she raps and does all kinds of stuff. So, Siri has changed a lot over the years. So
that's the end of the show.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. That was great. Really good one. And now I have work to do for the next round. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in today. And thank you again to Glenn for taking the time to chat with me and sharing the great resources and advice. And thank you both for another very fun show.
Yay!
It was fun.
Thanks, everybody.